Okay, welcome everybody to the first Map Time Davis of the quarter. I'm excited to get to do the intro today. My name's Naomi Kalman. I am on the Map Time Davis Council, and my day job is going to school and running my own business called Valley Spatial. We also today have Michelle Tobias, who is the head of the Map Time Council and works in the UC Davis Data Lab. And a little bit about map time. Map time is literally making time for maps. So we like to meet throughout the quarter once a week and have workshops, guest discussions, and make time to do cartography, workshops, learn about GIS, and do all kinds of other fun things. Michelle just put in the chat a link to our upcoming workshops. And we have a new YouTube channel where you can see all of our, well, not all yet, they're coming, but as many as we have uploaded yet of our past workshops. Today's workshop is being recorded and will be available once it gets processed and stuck up there. Okay, so I guess one more plug for Map Time. We do have the Map Time Council. There are lots of ways to help out. It's a community group effort. So if you're interested in learning more about it or being involved, you can contact Michelle, or I don't know if we have a dedicated handle. So you can just post some questions in the chat and we'll get back to you. Today we are super excited to have David Puckett joining us. David is the owner and C-suite at Bright Rain Solutions. And he's here to talk to us today about the web map project for the Hood, HCCC, Hood Canal Coordinating Council, which is in Washington. And it's an effort that's, well, I'll let him talk more about it, but it's a great example of using GIS and community participation for conservation. So David, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you introduce yourself and give yourself a good plug. Just side note, I get to do today because I have a very minor role on this project. And so it's very nice of David. I accept my invitation to come speak today. And so thank you very much.
For sure. I'm going to ask if you could allow me to share my screen. I've got a few slides here, but so I'm David Puckett, as Naomi said. I have a small geospatial consulting firm called Bright Rain Solutions. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado, and so I'm the developer for this lap tool that I'm going to show you here. Here we go. Thank you. And please let me know if you have any trouble seeing, but I'm assuming everyone can see the slides here. So the tool is called the Hood Canal Land Assessment and Prioritization Tool, the LAP tool we call it, a web mapping application to support conservation efforts in Hood Canal, and that's in Washington State. So this is a collaborative effort. Geo-indies, as I call us, geospatial independence businesses, we've come together. So Peterson GIS, you probably know Gretchen Peterson. She's the owner of Peterson GIS, and she's our project coordinator. She brought us into this project. She's been working with the Hood Canal Coordinating Council for, I don't know, a lot of years. And she used to live in Paulsville, where they're located. So, boy, I bet at least 10 years. I've been working on this project, I bet it's about 3 years now. So Peterson GIS, Gretchen Peterson, project coordinator, cartography. She literally wrote the book on cartography. Look her up on Amazon. She's awesome. She does a lot of the data and services management as well, and all around grand poobah, if you will. Bright Rain Solutions, that's me. Very technical stuff. I do the web development. I help out with some of the data and services management. And your very own Valley Spatial, Naomi Kalman, does a lot of data wrangling, is what I think. She does some cartography as well, and she is our meme and emoji coordinator. I'm not sure if she knew that, but she is. So I do want to give you a little mild disclaimer. I don't know a ton about the science, fish biology, and a lot of the science behind what I've actually done here. I'm more of the technical person. I built the web application, do a lot of the data and services, but I've really only met with them a couple of times, funny enough. So I only want to say that because you may have a lot of conservation related questions. I do know the area. I lived in Seattle for 10 years. I put a kayak in over at the Hood Canal. I've been to Polsvo, where the council was located, plenty of times. So I have anecdotes, if you want to hear any anecdotes about orca whales or anything, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm the geeky technology person here. Also, so Naomi told me this was going to be a workshop. I had a mild panic attack and I'm like, oh no, I thought it was a demo. This is a demo, but what we could do, if you have questions, please jump in. I promise you, I will not go 1 hour if you don't have questions or we don't make it a little bit interactive. So feel free to jump in. You can do the raise hand in Zoom or unmute yourself and give a shout if you want to. I'm very open to taking questions. So, all right. I promised I would never ever do this in a presentation, but I'm going to do it. I have 3 walls of text. So I'm trying to explain to you what this tool is and what the Hood Canal Coordinating Council is. And the best way to do it is just read through this stuff. And I apologize ahead of time. I'm just going to read it. So the Hood Canal Coordinating Council. The Hood Canal in Washington State has suffered from poor environmental conditions affecting local tribes and communities. So when I was in Seattle, it was a while ago, but before the Hood Canal Coordinating Council existed, there was a bunch of trouble in the Hood Canal. It was known for being poor quality. Fish were dying. It was terrible, really. It was striking. So that's how that's my anecdote to how the Hood Canal Coordinating Council came to be. So the Hood Canal Coordinating Council is the lead entity responsible for the coordination of salmon restoration and protection projects in the Hood Canal Action Area. In support of this effort, a collaborative team came together to develop a web mapping application, that's us, what I just showed you, to visually display the results of research and direct prioritization of conservation efforts in the Hood Canal, and the result of this collaborative effort is the HC LAP tool, Hood Canal. I'm not going to say it, LAP tool. What is it? The Hood Canal Landscape Assessment and Prioritization Tool is an integrated mapping tool that brings together many types of data to determine the locations where the landscape is most in need of protection or restoration to ensure the ecosystem continues to support its native species, habitats, in the Hood Canal community. This is a big one. I may not read it all. I'm going to read the top one here. How can it be used? The LAP tool is intended to inform the prioritization of strategies and actions in the Hood Canal Integrated Watershed Plan. And in land use and project planning, where complex land use decisions seek to balance social, ecological benefits and avoid or minimize impacts to important habitats, its results are meant to focus discussions on the holistic interactions between regional land use and the ecological processes that occur throughout the Hood Canal and Eastern Strait of Juan de Fuca watersheds. That's a lot, but it says what it does. I don't think I'm going to read all of this either. I will spare you that. But the little secret is, this is the splash screen for the application. Not going to lie to you. So you can absolutely read through this at your leisure. I'll make sure to include the link to the application itself. But just want to give you a little bit of background. It's said way better than I could have said it. The conservation effort, the focus of the LAP tool itself, and how it was built. So it's map time. A couple of maps. Where is Hood Canal? Hood Canal is in Washington State. It's here in the Puget Sound region. And so it is due west of Seattle, Hood Canal. And yes, the map professional totally lifted these maps from Wikipedia, which I sort of laughed after I did it. I sure did do that. But anyway, I'm going to show you the application itself here. So give me a little second while I jumble up some windows. I think I can just change bear with me.
So
Okay.
David, while you're juggling your windows, can you mention really quickly what the biggest priorities for the HCCC were, or in terms of species or goals?
Salmon recovery. Sorry, I didn't say that immediately. That this is definitely, I feel like salmon, again, this is me speaking, I would be very clear, I'm not a fish scientist, but salmon are the indicator species in the Puget Sound area. The summer chum are the resident orca whale's primary food source. So this is a really big deal. So it's focused on salmon. I mean, salmon is right on the West Coast and certainly in the Northwest. Definitely a big species, an indicator species, and that's what we're focused on here. It's all fish species, but I believe this, many of these initiatives are focused on the summer chum, and I'll show you some of that here as well. But that's a good question, Naomi. Thank you. There is a specific purpose behind this. Any other questions before I dig into the application itself? Okay.
Just another question.
Sure.
So why is the Hood Canal called a canal despite it is natural?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Why is the Hood Canal called a canal despite that it is not artificial?
I don't know the answer to that. It is a natural waterway. All of Puget Sound is a natural waterway, but I don't know the origins of why they call it a canal. There are a lot of strange name things happening in the Northwest, I can assure you, but I don't know. Anybody else have any ideas on that one? Okay. Anything else? I'll jump into the demo part of our talk today if there's anything else. So I'm going to give you a quick tour here. So dark mode, right away you notice it. It's a really nice, rich palette to put all of our data, all of our information. And I want to give a little shout out to my former employee, Andrew Lindley, who developed this, the original version of this back in 2019. He was a proponent of the dark mode. I'm not sure I would have gone that way, but I actually really like it, and it does a really nice job. So I'm going to talk about the base map too. That's obviously part of it. It's dark and it provides a nice palette for us. And this was designed by Gretchen Peterson, the cartographer, as you might imagine. It's quite beautiful and it's very effective. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, give you some sense of scale, and tell me if I'm going too fast. I know that rendering could be a little bit of an issue, so I'm going to try to go slow. But obviously, like any base map, things are coming on. This is a vector tile base map. Again, that's a technical distinction, but it is much faster. It's much crisper. It's a very nice looking base map. So you can see as you zoom in, you get waterways, you get some roads. And then another feature we implemented here is this idea of a fade in on the aerial imagery. Right, so this fits our purpose really well for this application. You want to see what's on the ground, but not when you're zoomed too far out. So we've implemented this sort of fade in. As you zoom in, the base map fades out and the imagery fades in until you get down to the boat level. Let's say you can see things on the ground, which again makes sense for this application, right? If you want to see things on the ground, and I'll show you some of these layers here. That might make a little bit more sense too, but I mean, the geeky part of this was totally fun for me to build. This fade in, fade out imagery. This is a little bit like, I think Snapchat does this. I may or may not have been inspired by that. So that's a base map. So over here we have layers, we have data, like all of this stuff, right? So the data layers are organized in categories. We have EDT, ecosystem diagnosis and treatment, and it's a method for managing waterways. It's a big part of what the council does. It's a big part of what they do with fish biologists, and it's at its simplest level, let's say it's a series of variables, right? That makes up this model, that make up this method. And that's what we're displaying here. All of these, at least on this EDT tab, if you will, are related to that, but all of the stuff that we're showing here kind of feed into that model. So let's dive into some of the toggleable layers is what I like to call them. You can turn them on and off, right? So on the EDT side tab, we have stream temperature. That one probably seems fairly straightforward, but so all of our layers have commonalities. So you can toggle them on and off. You can zoom to the extent of them. And then where appropriate, the legend items are here. You can hover over them. Also, you can expand it to see them individually. So this makes, I really like this layer, by the way. It lays out really nicely on this base map. You can see the cooler temperatures are at the higher elevations. This is Olympic National Forest and Olympic National Park in the middle here. So the elevation is significant. So that's stream temperature, aquatic lands. And then another important one is fish passage, right? So what does that mean? Can they or can they not? What does fish passage look like at any one of these places, right? So here's, if it's green, it's not a barrier, partial, total, there's diversions and other natural barriers. You can zoom in here, get more information on individual, I guess there's structures. I think that's a total fish passage blockage, and it's a dam. Well, there you go, right? So there's a little pop-ups that can happen. And again, that's a function of the data behind that we'll talk about, but you can get bits of information here. And this is true of most of the layers as well. Again, if you have questions about these specific things, well, you can ask. I don't know if I'll have a full answer, but that one seems obvious enough. EDT reaches, nearshore segments. I know they're important. I don't know that much about what they actually are. Naomi, I think you developed these particular layers.
I did. I don't know what they're for either, though. I mean, I know a little bit. We can circle back around to it, but
Okay.
There's a lot of different. There's a lot, yeah.
Right. So, but the idea is, if you do know what they are, this is where you would come to find that out, right? So that's what we built it for. But yeah, we'll talk about the data a little bit later too. And if you've got some insights, that'd be great. So this next tab is ecological criteria. So we have this change detection layer starting back in 2009. And again, I don't necessarily know the significance of the change, but I do know that we implemented a cool slider so that you could see change over time. Every 2 years, things are different. I mean, again, we could, and apologies, I don't have enough detail on that, but the same idea. You can click on this, the type of change, percent of change, and the time period. And then some pretty straightforward ones. County parcel data, important reference information here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we have wetlands, and this is having to do with the summer chum. As I mentioned, that's a big indicator species, especially in Hood Canal. Wetland inventory. I mean, you can imagine the importance of some of these. Prioritize summer chum salmon habitat. So they're really focusing on these. Forage fish habitat for conservation and for restoration. Again, Naomi, I think you put these out. If you have any insights for us, we can talk about that. All right, that is ecological criteria, and I'll go through a few others here that might be of interest. So there's salmon restoration projects, and this has some obvious value. Their current status, where they're at. Fish passage is a pretty big deal in the Northwest, and so they talk about fish ladders. think fish ladder, fish passage, they need to get past a dam or some other thing, seems to be a pretty important project that they might work on in this instance. Summer chum, ESU, I don't know what ESU stands for, but I'm sure it has to do with their range in the Hood Canal. And that's what this pink line represents, right? So all the drainages come all the way up into the Olympic Mountains. Critical areas. Again, I would say that, you know, as far as cartography goes, this base map works really, really well to highlight these individual layers. And then you have easements, and then reference Olympic National Park and Olympic National Forest. All right, one more tab. Future pressures, right? For planning purposes, that kind of thing. And this is county by county. And I guess I would point out now, this is it's a council, right? So it's made up of local governments, local tribes. And this is, you know, they come together specifically on this future pressures idea, right? Because there's zoning, there's all these other things that go into it that are important. Rural areas designated for growth. You can see how that would be important. This one was super interesting. So this is population growth. This is actually a service from ArcGIS, and it gives you population. Well, let's just click on this southern part here down by Union. So it gives you the current population and then the estimates, and it gives it to you at the scale you're at. So right now, I think this is at town or city level. If you were to go in, so you get at the census tract and so forth, and it'll go down. I think it goes down even further. This flattens out population. This is not a heavily populated area, by the way, but it is a future pressure that they want to monitor. So that's a census tract, and I think it goes all the way down to the block group, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so that goes down to the block group. And just for perspective, it's thinking really hard. Seattle, right? So the bigger picture, obviously, growth is going to happen more in Seattle than it is in rural, say, Mason County over here, but future pressure for sure. Sea level rise. So NOAA actually puts this data out, and we've taken advantage of it here. So it's sea level rise up to 10 feet, right? So implemented this slider feature. So this is current sea level, and you can slide it to go in 1 foot increments, but you can see how it creeps up the drainages there, right? So obviously future pressures. Not a fun phenomenon, but it was kind of a fun tool to build.
I'll just jump in. When David put that piece into the thing and said, go test it, I must have panned along the entire Puget Sound and just moved the slider bar in and out to see everything. That it's a really cool feature. You can look at it all the way down, you know, zoom in to see feature level on the map. You know, when you get the imagery, you should zoom in enough to see the imagery and then just move the slider in and out. It's very, I mean, I don't know, to me, it kind of seems like a little bit of magic. Like you just can click and zoom and it's all there. It's really cool.
Stock and trade magic.
Looks like Karen has a question about the credit situation. Karen, do you want to just ask it or do you want me to?
Yeah, sure. I was just curious if through Esri's premium, I think that population growth percentage is Esri premium. Does it use credits every time someone clicks on it?
You dialed right in on that. Yeah, absolutely. We
Okay.
actually had to implement a level of security to sign in because it does actually use credits. And so we're trying to figure out how best to handle that, right? So I have some credits, so I sign in, and you don't use that many,
Right.
but it's a good question because it's really good data and the layer is just there. But yeah, it costs money, right? Bottom line is, so could Hood Canal, absorb all that cost as just part of doing business, and we're still in that middle ground? But that was a really good question because that's something that we're talking about for sure. So you obviously are using ArcGIS and Esri products in a similar way.
Yeah, and I think it is an important thing because they want you to use all of their great layers, and then you realize, gosh, every time I click on this, and it is, I think every time you click on it, it's not just like, oh, because you embedded it in your web map, it doesn't cost until you use it. But if you just have random users out there and they're just clicking away for fun, it can add
Yeah,
up.
if they're doing their thesis on population growth and they're like, hey, look at this app that gives me all the data that I need, you could totally use it. So, I mean, yes, that is absolutely an issue. Unfortunately, it's how much of the internet works now, and I won't go on and on about it, but it's absolutely true.
Well, it's how our television system works now too. Like you pay all these premium stations, right? You have to pay. It's just a different model for the world. Yeah.
The only difference is that someone can't come along and consume things and make you pay. The dynamic here is such that, oh, people are using our tool. This is fantastic, and they're finding it useful. And, oh, that just cost us $2,000 because it's useful, right? So yeah, that's a tough one. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, I think.
Oh, excuse me, David. Alex just asked another question here. Since it's a team project, does each member upload their own data, or does it go through a single person? And as a follow-up, who configures the styles to make sure there aren't conflicts between layers? So I didn't know if you're gonna circle back to that or if you want to talk about that now.
Yeah, let's talk about it now. I was going to talk a little bit about the data, but that's more about the pipeline. We could talk about that. But in terms of styling, Naomi and Gretchen handle all of the styling pieces here, so they can see in the app what goes with what. It's like with any other map. If I turn every single layer on, it's just going to look terrible. But in terms of cartography and how this is displayed, for sure, Gretchen is like I said, she wrote the book on cartography. She knows what she's doing. And Naomi did a great job too. I would say the couple of layers that you did, I was very impressed with too. It looks great over this base map. But like anything else, if I turn on all these layers, they're going to start stepping on each other and be absolutely meaningless, right? But even that, I mean, that's a good looking map, if I say so myself.
Yeah, I think we tried to, I mean, I came in 80–90% of it was already done. So in terms of picking colors, tried to pick something that wasn't already in use. And then some of them, the fish passage data, that's from the Washington Department of Transportation, maybe, and they had a specific symbology already, and so we just copied we just recreated the same thing. So it's a mix, and Gretchen's a great resource for that. That's just the symbology though. So in terms of the uploading the data, I still get confused when we do all this, but the HCCC has their own Esri. They've got an ArcGIS Online, and we kind of manage all the data through there. So we each do whatever data processing, do the data processing that needs to happen, and then upload either a service or a table or whatever it's going to be in a format that David can use to pull into this, and then if anything, and then we meet and talk to make, sometimes the columns need to be rearranged or something needs to be added or subtracted, but we kind of funnel it all through that central ArcGIS Online for storage and for hitting it. Although, let's say here because I was going to say, I don't actually even know how the cool vector tiles work, because that David put all. Did you notice how fast it was? So that was a lot of work on David's part, and it looks like he's going to talk about that now. But Alex, did we get your question on the interference in the uploading data?
Yeah.
Cool.
Good. And this was going to be at the end, but I'll just show you real quick. I switched. I hope that you can see it. I can't see what you guys see, so yell at me if you don't see a diagram. Well, don't say super simple. I made a super simple diagram to try to show what's happening here, right? So Gretchen, Naomi do the analysis, right? I'm sure, well, the fish biologists actually do the analysis. You guys process it. The results go into various data repositories, I think it's fair to say. They go into a map document, and then those map documents get published out as web services. And that's what our application is using, are those web services. So there's a couple different types. There's vector tiles, which I talked about, which are super fast and they look great. And then there's feature layers where you can actually extract data. So when you're clicking on something and there's a pop-up happening, that's a feature layer so that you can get information about those individual features. So, I mean, that's the very simple explanation of kind of the flow. So hopefully that's helpful. So I just want to say, like, I would dive so deep into the tech, it would be ridiculous, but I don't know where everyone's at. So if you ask me for more details, I am more than happy to share or even talk to you afterwards about the specific details of it. All right, so I've got a couple more things I want to show. Let's go back here, window management. Okay, are we back to the lap map? So there are a couple of other tools that we put together that we were trying to figure out how do we incorporate them into this tool, into the lap tool, because we'd like to have everything in one place, but things got very, very complicated. We're still trying to figure it out, but there's a couple of other tools that I'm going to show you. And this goes even deeper into the science. And I don't even know what some of the words mean, so you'll forgive me, but this is the stream reach application. Okay, so there's a bunch of variables that you can control here, and it shows up on the map. How's that for a simple explanation? So you can talk about when, so you have the current conditions or historic, and then there are these attributes of various kinds for the waterways, right? Alkalinity, bed scour, gradient, all of these that you can change. And in addition, you can change that over time. Now, some don't matter over time. Gradient's not going to matter over time, but certainly temperature is going to matter over time. So let's say the daily maximum in January for current conditions are going to be cooler. And then, you move through the months, things start to get a little bit warmer. Let's just move all the way. August is going to typically be the warmest month there. All right, now we had some performance issues with this one, didn't we? I was going on about how vector tiles are blazing fast, and then this was like, oh no. It's thinking really hard here.
This is, this is a very big data set, and it's like a multi-level query, I think is how this ended up. We ended up having to stack the data because it was like, right, it's a really, really tall, skinny table is how we ended up having to do it, so that you could see both the time step and the different state levels within the time step and run that query. So I think that's why it was
For
slow.
sure. Yeah, for sure. It's a really big query. Every time you change one of these variables, it's a very big query. So all of these attributes, say for a couple, range from 0 to 4. So if you change them, you get different descriptions and what those values actually mean, right? So again, a scientist would know what benthic richness means to a waterway and come and see, okay, well, what does 0 mean? What does 1 mean? And there's these full explanations here. So yeah, we struggled. I still struggle with how I'm going to get something this complex into that one tool. Maybe it gets its own tab or something. I'm not sure, but for now, this is where they live. One more thing, there's something called the action guidance tool. Same idea, different variables here. Show you different things on the map. So we can say this is summer chum. Orca's favorite food, freshwater, estuary. I know what that means. I don't know what assessment means. And then you have these various attributes that go along with them as well. Again, if you're a fish biologist in the Northwest, you know exactly what all these things mean. And then you can click on them and get individual information about those waterways. It's the same idea. The values range from 0 to 4. So same here, trying to get this much interactivity and information into our lab tool is a challenge, right? And we may not end up incorporating it because it is a very useful standalone tool as it is. All right. So I was planning to talk a little bit about the technical stuff, but I want to make sure I get any questions answered about those 3 applications. And I guess even at this point, data, how that is fed, how it's processed, how it's fed into our applications. Any other questions? All right. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about technical stuff. Ask me questions if you want to. I'll even show you code if you want. I said that to Naomi. Should I show code? What? But I'm happy to do it if there's interest. So back to this. The web applications, all of them, and definitely the LAF tool, use fairly standard web technologies, JavaScript, CSS, HTML. We use a framework called Vue. It's a component-based framework. And then we use the ArcGIS JavaScript API, to build the map. And then, further down the chain, it's all open source stuff. We use NPM. There's the Vue CLI. There's all sorts of tools in the back end to, build this application and deploy it and do all that under the hood type of stuff. So like I say, I'm more than happy to share more details or talk with someone afterwards if you have more technical questions on how this is built or what technologies are being used. And let me make sure. Oh, I was going to talk about one more thing related to data. Sorry, we jumped around a little bit. And Naomi, I hope this isn't showing too much dirty laundry here, but I'm going to show the list of our, just to give a sense of how this works, right? So we talked about you pulling the data in, building out the map, and then publishing out the services. And just to sort of connect the dots, these are those services. So you have your map, it's ArcGIS Pro is what you use, and they make it very easy for you to publish services here on ArcGIS Online. And the Hood Canal Coordinating Council has an account here. And so all of those layers and services can get hosted here. We don't have to do any part of that. And that's really nice for an organization of this size. And by no means an Esri salesperson here, but for this particular instance, it's just available to you. Like, right, if you had to build out a database and an API, which I've done enough of, and maintain it, that's a lot of overhead for a small organization. So that's what we have here. We have these data services that are feeding these applications. All right, that's everything I have. Again, I'm happy to answer questions, show you anything else you might want to see.
I'll just jump in on that on the data side as well. It's nice for an organization of the size of HCCC, and I feel like it's worked well for our distributed team because it let me just jump in as needed for that one piece. I could work on my own workstation in a geodatabase and just publish it, and Gretchen could work on her workstation. It worked out really well for like a team of this size and for everybody being distributed and online. So that, and there's literally like all buttons that you click, like, once you figured it out. I mean, there were some hiccups. I got a couple emails in there like, how did you set the index to 25? I'm like, I don't even know. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I
It's
do remember
magic.
that. I still don't know how you did that, Naomi. That was awesome.
I'll just, it's a secret. The secret stays with me.
Right, fair enough.
But if there aren't any questions, can I have you go back and show some of the cool things like the pop-ups that you built? There's some nice custom, everything you click on the map is interactive. And there's a lot of tooltips and pop-ups. And that's all customizable within the services, the feature layers that we publish before it goes up on the, like, it's kind of like in this, I'm pointing on my screen, but you can't see it. This box that says vector tiles and feature layers. That's where you can, mess with the colors and the pop-ups and things like that before it goes live. So I didn't know if you wanted to go back and show the tool a little bit and show some of the cool custom stuff that you put in.
Oh boy, that's a great question. I don't remember. Do you happen to remember any of those?
Like anything you click on has like pop-ups with it, right?
Oh, right, like our fish passage, like this.
We're still looking at the how it works
Oh, sorry.
slide. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. How's that?
Yes.
Okay, so these pop-ups.
Yes. So every layer that we have on all of these, you can click on them and there's pop-ups and everything's been customized from this the layer name and what you show in the top and the bold to what columns are here and how everything's formatted. And so some of it's really basic like this, which you just obviously just pick a couple things. When you get into the more complicated ones,
Yeah, I'm trying to find those.
like maybe the EDT reaches might have more to them. Nope, not at all. But
Even less.
yeah, well, when the tool, I might get all the names, but the stream reach tool also had some interesting, to handle all that data when you click on things. There's pop-ups here too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this was another way that we tried to help synthesize all of this information that covered space and time and categories, and we relied on pop-ups a lot, and they were very easy to customize. And it was pretty easy to fall down the rabbit hole and start clicking buttons, but I think we got to a good, there's a lot of information to show, and I think we got to a good.
Yeah, well, you've triggered my memory here, but I can't recall what it is. There's one of our layers is actually calculated on the fly to say, okay, I'm in this conservation area, I'm in this zone, which is super powerful too. Say that out loud, but I don't remember which one it is. But yeah, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of data and information trying to show all at once, and that was certainly the biggest challenge in this mapping application. And as I said, we have two other ones separate because there was so much that I'm not sure we would be able to even fit in here unless we maybe just put them in another tab, like I say. But it's been a good project. The collaboration, I will say, Naomi, this is, and I'm not just saying that, this is the best collaboration project I've had. Like, you guys just feed me these data services and I'm like, fantastic, here we go. I don't have to trip over the data pieces, which when I start a new project, they'll say, I want this cool web mapping application, and we'll go all the way back to their data and say, we gotta fix this stuff first. And so with this project, it has not been like that. You guys have been fantastic in processing that data and making it available. So I would definitely shout out to you guys for that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it's, goes both ways. It's clear what we need to get to. which makes it much easier to put everything together in the first place, not just like, oh, I think we want to, you're very structured in that this is what the fields need to look like for it to do this thing. And Gretchen, of course, she's just a great project manager because she's got her hand on both those dials. Like she knows what it's supposed to be and like knows how the data is supposed to go. So she's, so we can all just kind of go do our pieces. So I do think it's a great collaboration. It's been very smooth. And this is on a personal, this is the first, I met Gretchen and David through Twitter. So we've never met in person. We don't
That's
have,
true.
so this came together exclusively online, and that it's been so smooth and so productive, I think we've got some really good tools in place, and just kind of some of it's living in the future, like Zoom. Everyone got on Zoom and we got used to it, but it's really cool what we did here. So Michelle has a question. Or do you want to read it yourself, Michelle?
Yeah, I can do that. It's probably easier than making you try to read what I put and make sense out of it. I was just curious, David, if you could talk a little bit about like what are the uses of this tool? Like, has it been used currently, or is it like planned? Like, what are you going to do with it now that you've built this really cool tool?
Hand it off to the Hood Canal Coordinating Council. So the short answer is I don't exactly know, but I do know that they have a plan going forward. We don't have analytics on this map, which sounds super nerdy, but I would be interested to know who's using it. But they do meet with frequency. And it really is a committee of people. Like it's all of the regional organizations that come together along with the scientists and all of those people. I presume that's who the users will be. But if I'm being honest, I don't exactly know. This isn't finished. They've had some wrinkles in staffing and weird things happen over the last year, and they're kind of working through those things. So we're not quite done yet. So I don't know how much they've distributed this far and wide. So a long answer to say I don't quite know.
Because I've been working with a couple folks on the UC Davis campus to build some much more simple tools for folks to use for like environmental decision making, and in conjunction with some of our California tribes. So I was just kind of curious if there was like a tie-in with that kind of work that you knew about.
I'm sure it exists. I just don't know about it.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Maybe I will get folks in contact with the other team you're working with, and maybe they can ask them questions.
I would encourage you to check out the website. They have planning documents. I mean, it's a lot, it's a planning document, but you can absolutely download it, read it. You can read summaries. It's all, it's ourhoodcanal.org is what it's called. And I'm sure there's plenty of information. And yes, I did lift the slides picture from their website. I forgot to credit them on that. But yeah, lots of information here.
Thanks. Looks like Karen has a follow-up question. Karen, do you want to ask it?
Sure. Yeah. I just was wondering, and I think you already answered the question, David. There is no analytical function in the tool itself. I was just wondering, because I know in ArcGIS Online, you can, in fact, ask questions and do overlays, but again, that uses credit. So you're in the same situation as we talked about before. So it sounds like it's right now just kind of a visual tool, but it seems like at some point, maybe the council itself could have it, the ability to do some analytics versus the public. I think that gets, when it gets into sort of, can you have a version of it that, some tools are accessible to different audiences. Have you played around with that at all? I'm just curious how that might work.
Yeah, you definitely can do that. So to your first question, you can they've been moving analysis tools on the web for 15 years now, and it's a thing you can absolutely do right now. I mentioned we have a couple of expressions in our pop-up that go to look up what conservation area you're in. But it's a query, let's say, and it lets you know more information. So that's the amount of analysis we're doing now. But for sure, you could implement a ton. Half of what you could do on desktop, that's just off the cuff, but you could do on the web now.
Yeah, and And certainly the web map. So this is where I learned kind of the hard way that it depends on which map viewer you use. Like if you use the old one, then you have access to analytical tools. But if you use the new one, it hasn't implemented them yet. And then what was the other? There was another thing I was going to ask you, but I totally have forgotten now. So if it comes back, I'll ask.
You asked about roles. Well, first, let me address the last point you said. That's an ArcGIS Online. Their old map viewer, classic, whatever they call it, versus the new one, versus this custom application, right? So you could do kind of whatever you want to. To your question about can you limit functionality to certain users, for sure you can do that. There's a whole security model in ArcGIS Online. Again, once you buy in, you're you're in there, right? But you can definitely do that. You can look and see, is this person in our fish scientists group? And if they are, you can put these tools down at the bottom. You can definitely do that kind of thing.
I mean, I'm aware of that, having used everything out of the box. I'm not a programmer, so I've never actually like created an app that is done with a lot of programming and that kind of thing. So that's why I'm kind of curious. I guess you can implement using groups and those kinds of things, much like you just do in the general application. So that's where I'm a really good ArcGIS Online user, but I don't program. So,
so here's an interesting bit for you that I don't know if anyone else will be interested in. So the new map viewer is built with the 4.x API.
Yeah.
This custom application is also built with that same API, and they dog fooded, as they say. They absolutely use their own tools. So we have everything available to us when we build this custom application that they would have available, in the whole ArcGIS Online platform. I always find that pretty interesting. It's powerful for sure, but you have to know how to write code and that sort of thing.
Okay. And just one other question. So you probably did a lot of the pop-up customization using Arcade, or did you use something else?
Well, again, the analysis piece that I talked about was Arcade.
Okay,
Everything else is configurable. Let's just say in your code you can configure.
Okay.
Yeah, Karen, as a follow-on to that, I did some of them, and I'm an Esri person too, so I just did my usual click through the menus that look like Esri things, and until I figured it out. And there was you could set the scale and the heading, and you could do a little formatting to concatenate things and show the labels or don't show the labels. Like all of that's out of the box, just buttons you can click.
Right.
I'm just gonna jump in and plug for those who do want to learn programming with like GIS type stuff. We are going to have a Python workshop that and you can use Python with the Esri tools and also with QGIS. So later this quarter, we will have an intro to geospatial Python if people are interested. I think Alex had a question too about pop-ups, which I think kind of follows along nicely. Alex, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I was just curious you had some charts in your pop-ups and things like that, and I was wondering if you were using only things that came with the Esri JavaScript, or if you added any JavaScript libraries in to do additional functionality.
Those charts are built into that ArcGIS population service. Again, pretty nice, but I'm trying to think if we've done that here. I don't think I have anything here, but it is a typical thing to use charting applications like D3 or something like that, but we're not using anything here. I'm thinking while I'm answering. I don't think we are. Anything in particular you're interested in, or just curious?
No, I was just curious if you had integrated any other libraries and if you knew about compatibility. Like, have you added D3 to a map like this before? And
oh, for sure. Yeah. There's no there's no conflict. If I wanted to build a box up here that when I clicked on the map, it showed this cool animated D3 visualization, you could absolutely do that. Yes, and I have done that in a couple of other instances. But Not able to show you right now.
We also did just post our D3 workshop from last quarter on the YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to go and get an intro to D3 or leaflet, we have those videos are now on the YouTube channel. So check those out too. So we don't have to know everything. We can now refer to the old videos. That's so exciting.
Archive, yes. Any other questions? Thoughts, ideas? Sounds like a wrap.
Well, I'll say I really appreciate you coming to our map time group today, David. Thank you so much.
Yep.
This is, you know, to show a work in progress is fantastic. I know we still have some work to do. There's another, I mean, I know I have another 80 hours budgeted for something. But like we've got all this beautiful information, and so it is, you know, this technical part of the project is just such a fantastic resource and a good starting point for collaboration, because now that everything's in one place visualizing, now we can start asking these questions, where the analysis and where to focus. And I think it's just such a phenomenal, I'm just really impressed with it's so fast and it's smooth and it's intuitive. So I mean, I came in on the very end, did a little data munging. So you and Gretchen really have done a fantastic job. And I appreciate you sharing it with us. So hopefully people can see what some of the potentials are, like both out of the box and beyond out of the box. Thank you so much for coming today.
Absolutely, you're welcome. It was fun.